Very good morning to everyone. Special thanks to MPC for inviting me here to speak at an event. It's very impressive, very technology-driven platform that you have there. I must say that I'm very awed by the spectacular technology being displayed here. Special thanks to MPC for inviting us here once again, and I'm deeply honored to be along with very prestigious, very honorable panelists, Dato' Wira, Dr. Haji Rais, and yourself, Mr. Shaifu Bahrain. Thanks for the kind introduction. We are basically an award-winning AI firm that believes in AI for impact. And imagine a situation here where many of SMEs in Malaysia are unwell. Okay, so when you are not well, okay, the number of hospitals, clinics, and medicines won't do you any good. Okay, it's not about the number of platforms, it's not about the quantity of medicines or dosage that you take that will help you recover from this particular situation or from a particular illness. So we feel that in order for people or businesses to recover from this situation, the COVID-19 situation, when you're unwell, you need to relook. You need to restore and rebuild your business model. You got to relook and restructure your finances, operations, systems, and all of that. So this is the theme of my presentation. In the next few minutes or so, I've put together a small deck that would give some insight on including some case studies on the state of situation affecting SMEs in Malaysia. Okay, so the idea of being unwell is very important because, like I said, you have to relook and revisit how you work things out. The old way of doing things are no longer relevant. We have to look into new ways of doing things. We need to relook at how we carry out our business activities, operations, models, strategically, operationally, and structurally. So no matter how many funds that you get, no matter how many customers that you get, okay, if you don't revisit the way you transact and the way you strategize, it will be a big problem because it will not be a sustainable approach. So the problem statement that we put up today, it's about the situation of SMEs in Malaysia in the context of the COVID situation that we are in. We estimated that more than 120,000 SMEs in 5 key industries in Malaysia are severely challenged. So if you take them out of the equation, out of the ecosystem, this could cripple the economy and erode employment and at a time when assistance schemes are lifted or reduced. Okay, so this is a very serious problem that we face, and we spend a lot of time, and we are very privileged to be part of MDEC's technology TSP, Technology Solutions Provider Program, where we actually use artificial intelligence to help companies sustain and improve their business and financial performance through proper benchmarking and proper health restoration. So the need of the day is actually a more sustainable, tailor-made intervention program required to make SMEs more viable. Okay, assistance is important, is needed. Without it, they will collapse immediately. But now, after the assistance is given and continued assistance is given, how to bring them become viable from short to medium and long term. So this is the focus of my presentation today. Special focus is about benchmarking them properly to determine the extent of their financial health and the granularity of their over or underperformance. In this case, is more apt if we call it underperformance. In specific areas, we find that SMEs are lacking in 4 key areas that they need help in to become viable and sustainable. First is their working capital gaps. We all know that we all need working capital because of the COVID. We lost revenue by 60 to 80%. Some sectors are more affected than the other. Now the question here is, how would one SME differ from another? We all know we have gaps. We all know we are unwell. We all know we are sick. The question here is how much dosage should be given to each SME to address and to spread out the allocation of resources so that they get the help that they need and they can restore and rebuild their business over time. And second point is actually the productivity strategies. Okay, this would include the digital disruption or digital transformation that Mr. Shaifu Bahrain was mentioning. How do you make that agile leap to acquire new market share, to acquire stronger financial performance, to have higher productivity levels? With certain input, you get more output than before. So productivity is a key part of survival in today's climate, in today's situation, and into 2021. And the third component is actually the competitive analysis. You can be efficient, you can have the funding, but if your product is still undifferentiated, is still the same compared to the guy or the lady next door who's competing the same way, then you lose that competitive edge. So when you lose your competitive edge, means you lose market share. When you lose market share, means you lose your top line and bottom line capabilities, okay, or status. And on top of it, central to it is how do you remodel your business model? How do you redesign, restructure your business model to become more competitive, to become more productive, and to become financially viable? So at the end of the day, it's not about the number or quantity of medicine programs, funding that you get. It's about how you restructure, remodel, reskill, upskill your people to achieve a certain financial outcome. Why now? As you can see, the scenarios coming out from COVID has been very, very unpredictable. You can experience repeating smaller waves of infection, up, down, but very small waves, very manageable. Scenario 2 would be suddenly a second larger wave of infection hit us, and through all our strategies, all in shambles, So huru hara, all what we plan, what we set aside, what we budget, suddenly goes out of tangent because of scenario 2, before it tapers down and starts becoming volatile. Scenario 3 is a situation where there's a slow burn of ongoing. Okay, there's lots of ups and downs, but it's a very, very long process of recovery. So whatever the scenarios that we're trying to predict, the point is we must be adaptable, we must be ready, we must be nimble, okay, to handle these three scenarios. And that's a difficult situation, I admit. Easier said than done. But in this case, adaptability, nimbleness, right, adjustments to the business model to cater for these three scenarios, it's planning. It's about planning. It's about getting ready for this. Either you're from policymaker perspective, you're a business owner perspective, you're from employee perspective. You've got to always prepare this scenario 1, 2, and 3. Okay. We did a study involving more than 5,000 over SMEs across Peninsular Malaysia, Sabah and Sarawak, 18 industry groups, collective assets of 15 billion ringgit under review, with 20 million shareholder funds, very low equity there. And we find that most businesses have challenges, okay, in terms of handling the COVID outbreak. And let me just give you a quick overview first about the study. So the study was done in 2 phases. One was before COVID, the other one was past March, and we did a lot of sensitivity and stress testing on the current state of their financials before COVID struck, before MCO actually struck. So you can see that using AI, we actually profile, benchmark, analyze, diagnose companies across those industry groups. Collectively, before we go down to the specific, collectively, we did an MRI scan, okay, to understand them in terms of business performance, shareholder value, risk and liability, and productivity. You can see from the table on the right side, those are the state of situation that companies are in before COVID. Their cost behavior, their cost containment strategies, even before COVID, were very, very inefficient. Okay, and there have been a lot of regulatory trends and issues that may drive up costs in certain sectors and certain industries. Okay, in terms of shareholder value, the ROE and the ROI, the competitiveness of products and service offerings are in question. Okay, their pricing strategy is aimed for market share, but not for profitability. Okay, and there is also impacted, what's impacted also is their business valuation. Because of the way they manage their business, their bottom line and top line and balance sheet dynamics, right? The valuation, the underlying value of a company gets eroded even before COVID. And in terms of risk and liability, right, they have what you call a very fragile set of balance sheet, heavy reliance on short-term financing across sectors, okay, and there's a lot of duration gaps in their management of their asset and liability. Their balance sheet has a lot of duration gaps, and this is where there are fundamental weaknesses even before COVID struck. From a productivity angle, they have a lot of challenge in terms of the level of concentration or heavy concentration of client, where top 20% of the client make up 80% of their revenue and profitability. So there's a need to do a lot of margin analysis across products and services. So for I'm not sure whether the slides were shown earlier, but I'm now showing the previous slides, just a quick showing, a glimpse of what has been shown earlier. Okay, so earlier on I spoke about the need, okay, because there's a lot of problem statements affecting SMEs, where more than 120,000 SMEs, 5 key industries were affected. Therefore, the need is to create a more sustainable tailor-made intervention program to make them viable from short to long term. And then there are 4 special focus that needs to be undertaken by SMEs. You need to go through health check to understand the extent of your working capital gaps, the extent of productivity, how competitive you are, and your business model. Okay, and we spoke about no matter what strategies you have, if it's a very single-minded, single-dimensional strategy, it won't work. Especially if 3 sorts of scenarios happen at different times of the year, you will be caught, okay, off guard. So the trick is to be aware of the implications, to set aside more reserves, more buffer, and more so-called insurance or ring fencing of your risk strategies. Okay, then we spoke about the study, about the SME study that we've conducted before and after COVID. So this is what you call like an MRI scan, okay? Green means good, red means bad, amber means average to below average. And you can see 19 sectors are being covered. 12 is excellent, 1 is poor. So without looking at the numbers, just look at the color schemes. You can see that majority of SMEs in most of these 5,000 over companies in the sectors, 19 sectors, is that they are going through amber to red position. Only a few selected portfolio of them are in the green. But this was before COVID, right? So after COVID, you can see that we had a quadrant, a dichotomy where you need to be in quadrant B, right? So before COVID, there were a lot of initiatives and activities to help SMEs to move from quadrant A, which is high risk, high return, to quadrant B, which is high returns, low risk. Unfortunately, COVID struck, and just like snake and ladder, right? The black arrow brings us down to low returns, high risk situation. And this is where the monitoring, the assistance, the support needs to be carried out for all of these companies who are already in the amber and red. So when you bring the 5,000 companies to become a larger portfolio of 150,000 SMEs, for example, okay, then you can have a crisis. Because the question here is, how much more assistance can you pump? How much more help can you prolong, right? Of course, they need help. But in the meantime, does that mean that we don't spend time and resources to rebuild and restore them? Because, there's always a limit to any resource that are being pumped in. Hence, technology will come in. So the solution in all of this is to adopt an AI approach to help businesses rebuild and restore their operations. And how AI can be employed, being specialists in this field, we can basically process financial and non-financial data without any manual intervention, pump it into the AI engine. It can produce a health check, a health roadmap, a health indicator, a health findings, as well as a scenario analysis. So if you pump in 10,000 companies, okay, or you pump in 100,000 companies' data information, either from SSM or from their website or from their, publications of sorts, right? You can basically generate all these analyses without human intervention, where you can actually benchmark them, tell them what happened, why did it happen, what needs to be done, and what sort of scenarios that can happen based on the outcome. And it becomes what you call a customized, tailor-made business roadmap with financial strategies in covering those 4 areas we spoke about: productivity, right? We talk about top line, bottom line. We spoke about risk levels and so on. Okay, so this is an example of how AI can actually work, just to show you that it's not science fiction. It's actually something that has been going around. So once you put up all the financials, you can analyze and provide a barometer of their operations, of their shareholder value creation, of their risk levels, right? And it can basically diagnose where are the gaps and what needs to be done. So you don't have to have a manual approach of helping that 100 over 1,000 SMEs. Then it provides all the areas of the action plan, personalized action plan that each business needs to take. So you can still bring the humans in to create that human interaction, human intervention, and human discussions to build the rapport. But instead of that human handle so many people and so many number crunching, you actually can group them on a clustered basis and yet with personalized solutions. Okay, so these are some of the examples of how you can use AI to carry out the restore and rebuild program over 100,000 companies. So what we're saying here is there's been talk about how SMEs must pivot and all that. But before you do that, you must check your fundamentals first. Okay, do a financial health scan. Okay, so we encourage SMEs to come forward. We love to work with agencies to come forward and put all the SMEs into an X-ray MRI machine and then quantify the gaps, okay, quantify and list out systematically the areas for restructuring. Okay, then the system, the AI system will be able to create a tailor-made, customized roadmap to identify the areas for intervention and help consultants and experienced professionals, managers, executives to caseworkers to help the SMEs become better. And this is where after they have been assisted, then you can put in what you call the digital transformation strategies to SMEs. Ask any business owners. They will tell you what's in it for me if I adopt technology. Can you help me feed? Can technology help me feed my people? Can technology help me to bring new business? So they will never be convinced, even if you tell them that IT or technology or AI can help them. Okay, by infusing that into operation. You cannot jump into the third stage before the first two stages are assisted, where financially, strategically, operationally, they're assisted with proper tailor-made assistance program. So this is what we observe, not just in Singapore, in Malaysia, but across the world in 19 in 19 countries involving 21 SME agencies all over the world. Okay. And if you were to bring in the McKinsey model and apply it to the SMEs, you realize that you have to identify those low-hanging fruits. Okay, the time to impact that must be fast. The impact on EBIT or earnings before interest must be quick. So circle up all the things on the top right hand and bottom half, right? You realize that SMEs need revenue growth management, e-commerce analytics, how to go to market fast, how to plan the production to meet the demand, how to make sure customers feel happier, customer loyalty, branding are all achieved. So if you look at the divided into half on the right hand side, top and bottom, we need to move our AI to help the SMEs achieve and speak this and achieve these goals and speak with them in this language. Then you can get them to get on board. So I guess this will be one of the topics for Q&A, but I just want to give you some kind of framework for that. My last slide is about digital economy is more than just about connectivity. Leadership also entails understanding and managing the strategies to deal with COVID. And yet that depends on three scenarios that we cannot predict, but we can prepare ourselves for. So the SMEs are facing indeed the greatest challenge for their survival. So before pivoting take place, before you can restructure in terms of digital transformation, right? You need to restore and rebuild the fundamentals of your business: financials, top line, bottom line, and then the people. Okay, so in short, SMEs cannot be assisted on a small scale. We are in a very, very unique situation where everybody is impacted. Okay, and you have to take drastic measures. You have to do things on a big scale measure and widely applied across industry spectrums, not just based on 500 companies, 5,000 companies, but 100 over 1,000 companies, 5 sectors. Yet you have to do it on a tailor-made, personalized basis. You cannot do it on a cookie cutter method. You cannot do it on templatized method. You cannot do it on a copy and paste template method. You have to make it personalized because every SME is affected, yes, indeed, but the way they are impacted, the way they are pushed to the brim of collapse is very different. So in terms of human capital, operation, strategy, structure, products and services, all need to be catered for differently. So with that, I would like to end my session. Thank you so much, Mr. Moderator, Mr. Shaiful Bahrain, and Datuk Wira, Dr. Haji Rais for being part of this panel. Thank you.